GM. GM. Today's lesson, I'm going to talk about how to not worry about things that are out of your control. I think this is a very common thing that affects most of us from time to time. Things are going on, whatever it is in your life, whether it's work or business or relationships. And your brain always defaults to worrying about potential future scenarios that play out badly. And especially when it's out of your control, you tend to overthink it. So there's a couple of ways to approach this that have helped me. The first thing is it's a survival mechanism. Your brain is designed to think of the worst case scenario. It has to. Your brain has to preoccupy itself with risk and potentially dangerous things or things that can go wrong or things that are external events that might affect you. The reason for that is because if you didn't, right, if you never considered any of the downsides or anything that could go wrong, you'd probably be dead. You would have got into a bunch of dangerous situations and gotten fucked up. So sometimes for some people that helps, for some people it doesn't. But it helped me when I really understood it. I learned that very young. And understanding that did help because the sooner you can realize that your thoughts and your initial reaction, it doesn't have a bearing on your life unless you let it. Right? Your thoughts are going to happen anyway. So if you feel that, this feeling of things that are out of my control and I'm worried about what might happen, just say, okay, that's fine. My brain's supposed to react that way, but it doesn't mean I have to keep feeling that way. Your brain is supposed to react to make you check if you hear something in the trees, you want to know if it's a fucking lion or if it's just the wind. But when you get these negative thoughts, you can acknowledge them and then just say, okay, this might happen. This is out of my control. Let's move on. Now, it's easier said than done. And a big part of that with the feeling of a lack of control, sometimes it comes down to just being as simple as not taking life too seriously. And there's a couple of ways this kind of manifests itself. Number one, think of all the things you've ever worried about. A lot of people worry on a daily basis. Everybody worries on a weekly, monthly, or yearly basis. There's always something that you think, well, if this happens, then I'm fucked because of this. Or if this happens, it would be really bad for my finances. It would be really bad for my health. It would be really bad for my relationship. There's always something that's going to crop up. Again, some people worry daily, some worry weekly, monthly, yearly. Wherever you are on that spectrum, there are times in your life where you have worried about something that was outside of your control. Now, let's say it's once a month. And let's say you're 18 years old. And for the last 8 years, you've been worrying, right? You're probably not worrying about too much before you're 10 years old. So that's 8 years, 12 months. That's about 200 months, and you worry once a month. That's 200 times you've been worried. That's 200 times where there's something that's been out of your control that you've been concerned about and you think it's the worst thing in the world and in your head you blow it up into being something massive. How many times did it actually come to anything catastrophic? You're still here, aren't you? You're still alive. You're still healthy. You're still in relatively good financial or condition in life in general, right? I'm sure you've had setbacks, and everyone has had setbacks. And of course, some people have had catastrophic events happen to them. We've all had tragedy on us, personally or in our families, I'm sure. Many of us have health problems or have had health problems and have overcome them or are even still battling them. It's not to say that everything in your life is always perfect. But let's take it back and use a trading analogy. Statistically, probabilistically, you've probably worried about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of things that are outside of your control, and maybe one or two have actually resulted in anything serious. The vast majority have just been non-events. And the picture you paint in your own head is always so much worse than what actually happens. So being aware of that helps. Does that mean you're never going to worry again? No. But it should serve to remind you not to worry so much, or not to let it affect your everyday. This probably comes more from other people, right? If you've ever been worrying about something and then you speak to someone, a family member or a friend, they'll often be the one who'll remind you. And they'll say, wait a minute, but don't you remember you were worried about this thing in the past and it turned out to be fine? Sometimes it takes an objective third party outside of you to remind you of that. And I think that is what I can do for you here on this lesson, is help you realize that. Because sometimes you just need a person outside of yourself to say it. And to say, you don't need to worry. Worrying doesn't serve you. You'll be fine. You'll get over it, whatever it is. And in reality, it's not going to end up as bad as you think. So that's the part about remembering that this, constant cycle of worry is a natural thing. It's your brain's normal wiring, and that it never turns out that bad. And then the other thing is, quite often when you're at the most stressed, you're always we always stress over very minor things in the grand scheme of things. If you just zoom out a little bit and think, I only have one life. I only get a certain amount of time on this planet. In the big picture, how much does this really matter? Over the course of my entire life, how much does this minor thing about trading, or this minor thing at work, or this minor inconvenience with some person, how much does it really matter? Getting in trouble at school, or getting fired from work, or whatever. You can always get another job. Getting in trouble in school is fucking nothing. Everyone gets in trouble in school. I know it feels like the worst thing in the world when you're in school, but it's not. So, most of this stuff, like sitting here right now, I cannot remember. I literally could not even name 10 things that I used to worry about when I was under 20 years old, right? When I was a teenager. And I know that there was loads of things. I was like worried about this, worried about that, and fucking girls, or school, or work, or making money, or what. I know broadly what I would have been worrying about, but I could not name one thing. And back then, when I was 17, it felt like the biggest thing in the world. It was literally all-consuming. It was taking over your entire mind. All you could think about was this seemingly massive negative event, or this terrible thing that you couldn't control that was going to ruin your life. Take it from me. 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you won't even remember what it was. So that perspective, just learning to zoom out a little bit and just ask yourself, is this going to matter to me in 10 years? Is it going to matter to me in 1 year? Probably not. You're worried about an argument you had with someone at school? Cool. Guess what? 5 years from now, you're probably never going to speak to that person ever again in your entire life, because most people from school, you end up drifting away from. Got in an argument with your boss at work? Cool. Guess what? 10 years from now, you'll be running your own company, or chilling on a beach somewhere, retired already, depending on how well your life path goes. There's very, 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 very little that is actually truly worth worrying about. And I would argue almost nothing is worth worrying about. Because when you think about the word worry, the negative connotation it carries, worry takes power away from you. There has to be something you can do. And if it is if it's a situation that's out of your control, that doesn't mean you can't affect in some way. You might not be able to, let's say you got a family member who's sick. Well, you can't magically make them better, unfortunately. But you can take action to do as much good as you can. You can help in every single way possible. You can even look for treatments or ways to help. Or you can even just work on yourself to not be in that position, to not have that hanging over your head. If there's something you truly can't control, that's external, that's outside, that's affecting somebody else, then all you can do is work on yourself. Meaning, how do I process this emotion? Because if I really can't, if you've got a sick family member, we'll just use that example, and you really cannot, you can't fix them, then you can A, help them, be supportive in any way you can, physically or with helping out with things or bringing them places or doing things, whatever it is, right? So you can immediately, that makes you're in control of that. And then once you've done that, if the only thing left to process is the fact that they're sick, you have to get in and begin to process it. At a certain point, you have to sit down and say, I can't affect this. I can't control this. Therefore, I have to accept that and then do the very best that I can with what I can control. That's all we can do in life. There are things you can control and things you can't control. Your job is to focus on the former. And then for the latter, the things you can't control, accept it. Literally say to yourself, would love to, but we can't control this one. Tell your brain, we can't fix this, we can't change this. Let's be productive and constructive and do what we can with the best that we have. That'll take you from a place of powerlessness to a place of control. And from there, things will usually get better.